It's nice to see all of you. Thanks for turning out, and all these beautiful women. Give yourselves a hand. Interesting, if I were standing with a group of men here and I said, give yourselves a hand, the women, and we look at each other, men would be like, "Argh." Thank you very much for showing up. My name is Kim Moses, and I grew up in a very poor, very small coal mining town in southwestern Pennsylvania. And the only way out for guys in that town was that they played sports and they got an athletic scholarship and they went to a university. Or they could go on welfare, or they could do something that would springboard them into the local prison. For girls, our options were we could be a teacher, a nurse, or we could get married. Today, I live in Los Angeles, California, and I'm an executive producer of a TV series on network television. I have a deal with a major studio for production. I'm the only woman on the television side of dramatic television that's working in television and the intersection of the internet and all of the digital content platforms. And I'm married to a great guy. He hasn't been to prison, he's not on welfare, and he's not an athlete. And I have two beautiful sons, and those sons live a very enchanted life compared to the life that my brothers, I have three brothers. My brothers and I lived when we were growing up in Donora, Pennsylvania. And people always say to me, they always ask, how did that happen? How did you transcend that world? And how I did it was I broke rules, but I broke those rules purposefully. And rather than let other people around me create meaning for me, I created meaning for myself from the inside out. And I took responsibility for creating my future. There's a quote, and I always look for themes in life because I write a lot and I produce, and themes are really important to me. And there's a quote that I've used as my guiding theme in my life and making career and personal choices. And that quote is the theme that I incorporated into my life and I've really used it kind of as a cord to pull me through life and make decisions. And that quote is, living the good life is living in a place you belong, being with people you love, and doing the right work on purpose. And what's interesting and instructive about that is that you can look at your life and your work from the inside out, and you can create for yourself rather than have the outside create it for you. And when you do this, there's a big shift that starts to happen in your life, and that shift is that you start to find your voice. And that voice is your voice, and that's what makes you unique. So today, what I'm going to talk about, and I'll try and be really quick about it, is I'm going to talk about the journey of how I found my voice, how I created these building blocks, and how I broke the rules along the way purposefully. And when I broke those rules, and I continue to break them today, I pay attention to the following things: how and why I break those rules, how it feels to break those rules, what I learn when I break those rules, how I take responsibility when I break a rule, and then also I step back and I watch myself learn from that experience. So back to the three choices in Donora when I was 18 years old. I chose, out of the three, I chose door number 3, which was to get married right out of high school. And fortunately, the guy I married had chosen door number 1, which is he was an athlete, and he got an athletic scholarship at a university. So now I want to just stop for a minute and talk about my brother. I had 3 brothers. They all got out of that area as well by being athletes and getting scholarships. My brother Jay went to Princeton University, and then he put himself through Harvard and got his MBA. He was the first person in our town to get an MBA. We were very proud of him. And he built a business, and he's a very successful businessman at this moment in time. And a couple weeks ago, he gave a speech, and that speech was kind of the speech that I'm giving today, which was he was in front of a group of businessmen, and he had to do a formal presentation, and he walked through his milestones of his life. And part of his milestones were the fact that I had married this guy because we all grew up together. The guy I married was my junior high sweetheart. So he looked at that, and what he told this group was, here was this guy who, was with my sister, and, he weighed like 40 pounds. He was a tall string bean, big nose, funky hair. And I was no Miss America either at the time. So. Anyway, he turned out to be an NFL, a success in the NFL. And my brother's takeaway from that story was, who knew? Who would have, you never know how somebody's going to turn out or, what their destiny is. My takeaway from that story was, that guy, that life, not for me, thank you. And how I came about that was I was able to create meaning for myself from the inside, and I took responsibility for my future, and I moved on. I moved on to Washington, D.C., and there I got a job. I was very lucky. I got a job on a congressional subcommittee. And on that subcommittee, before I go any further, it was called the Subcommittee on Natural Resources and the Environment on the House side of Congress. And we had a freshman congressman named Al Gore on our subcommittee. And the first hearing we had was a global warming hearing. And people were like, global what? Because nobody really understood what that was, nor did we. And I went to see a couple of years ago when An Inconvenient Truth came out, Al Gore's feature film about global warming. And I was stunned because the message that he put out there at that hearing years ago was exactly the message that he had in An Inconvenient Truth. And it was a remarkable thing to see somebody take a message, create a brand, and have to create the underpinnings of the research and to validate it and ground it, but then to take that message out and put that message on every platform you could possibly put it on, sticking true to the message, and he changed the world. I mean, global warming is our vernacular now, and it's amazing to see what he's accomplished. So back to the subcommittee. What happened on the subcommittee was when we first got there, the White House said to us, you cannot rock the boat. You guys can be on the subcommittee. Your congressman, he was a little crazy, which was great. And it was a small ragtag group of people who worked on the subcommittee. You can have your hearings, you can do what you want, but the full committee said to us, do not rock the boat. Don't kick up any dust about the White House. It's a new administration in town, and we need to cooperate with them. So the first year, one of the things we discovered was there was a program that was at risk that the White House was going to kill. And that program was that there, you know, when you're in recreational boats and you have the beacons, I don't know if any of you have them, but they're safety beacons, and if you are in a hurricane or you're in crisis, the boat tips over and you need to be rescued, you push a button on a beacon and it communicates to a satellite, and that satellite notifies the Coast Guard of exactly where you are in the ocean. And everybody knows that when you're looking for a boat in the ocean, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack unless you know exactly where it is. So the administration was going to end this program because they didn't feel that they could put the money to it. And we put together the hearing, and we had remarkable witnesses, people who had been rescued by these satellite beacons. And we had incredible visuals where there were people in boats that were tipping over, you know, at the mercy of 60-pound waves pounding their watercrafts. And we couldn't get anybody to come to the hearing. We couldn't get the press to come to the hearing because I think there was some scandal, who can keep track of these things, but some scandal up on the Hill where some congressman slept with somebody and it came out. And of course all the press wanted to cover that, and nobody was interested in this. And the White House was sending some mid-level bureaucrat in a suit with a bunch of charts and graphs, and they were going to just, you know, show what, you know, different things, and it was a soft shoe, and they were going to go out of the room, and we knew the program was going to get killed. So the night before the hearing, I was sitting there, and I remember looking at the phone and thinking, if we don't have this hearing and people don't know about it, they're going to end this program, and people are going to die at sea. But if I pick up this phone and kick up some dust, I'm going to get killed. So, and everybody, I'm sure, in this room has been, you know, at that moment in time where there is a dilemma, where you're trying to figure out, weigh who you are as a person, and your morals, and, you know, trying to balance how you navigate through the world. So I did actually pick up the phone, and I called a reporter who was at a local news station in Washington, D.C. Of course I didn't get her because she was probably doing the news. But I did get her producer, and the producer took the phone call, and when I told her the story, she was interested. So I hung up the phone, and I made another phone call. And I made another phone call, and I made another phone call. And I called everybody I could find in Washington who would take my call, who was either at a radio station, a newspaper, or involved in television coverage or news. The next morning I came to work, and I found out that the White House was under siege. That all the reporters were interested because it was a story about humanity. And so they had all been in touch with the White House, and they wanted their president to go on record as to why he was putting the public at risk. And so I went into the hearing room, and it was jammed with reporters. I mean, it was the most stunning thing. And 5 minutes before, and then the White House, of course, was obligated to send up somebody who was much higher in the food chain from the White House to speak on behalf of the president because of all the attention. They were pressured.